Good morning, y'all. I woke up this morning to a little bit of liberal hive mind, and something just didn't sit right with me. You know how you watch something and you're just like, something ain't sitting right. Okay? Either because you saw it before, saw it somewhere else, or something just ain't sitting right. Well, what I saw today on Liberal Hive Mind, one of my favorite shows, by the way, is the simple fact that Trump was indicted. So I decided to do a little digging on why this ain't sitting right with me. And then I remembered something that Alan Dershowitz and Judge Jeanine Pirro had said at the last indictment of Trump in New York City. Not the one where, the bro was like, 37 years ago, I can't remember my last name and whatever, but I remember him assaulting me, so please give me some money. Because clearly her book sales didn't do too well, seeing as it was like, 5 millionth on the Amazon book selling list. Anyway, that's not the point. I'm talking about the other one. The one where he was supposed to go for the hush money. And I remember, at least I thought I remembered, Alan Dershowitz, a constitutional scholar, okay, someone who is like a teacher of law, and Judge Jeanine Pirro having an issue with the grand jury indictment. Okay, so they said something to the effect that I remembered, that a grand jury indictment, a list of the charges, explanation of the charges period, and what they use to back them up shouldn't be opened until the arraignment, or the first appearance, as people call it. Okay, so I went ahead and did some, little searching on the interwebs, which was kind of hard because nowadays, if it has anything to do with Trump, oh my God, okay, it is front page news, but it kind of made my job a lot easier because I found a timeline via media, okay? So I want to share that timeline. You'll have to excuse me. I'm going to be flipping some pages. Okay. Now, where's my timeline? Here we go. Okay. We knew around June 6th of this year that a grand jury was convening in Florida. A federal grand jury was convening in Florida in order to talk about the charges against Trump, okay, about the document case. June 9th, CNBC said that Trump was indicted about this particular case. Now, I'm going to leave it open-ended and vague because I am not a lawyer. I'm not a scholar of legal things. I am not Alan Dershowitz. I'm not Jeanine Pirro. I am not Trey Gowdy. I'm definitely not any of the other lawyers here on YouTube. Some of my favorite lawyers, like, I forget his name, but Robert, because I don't want to butcher your last name, and I always do. But he's part of Watching the Watchers. And so, his last name escapes me at this point in time anyway. I'm not a lawyer like they are. I don't know the legal system, okay? I just Google things and say, oh, that's what that is. Or I go and listen to people like Trey Gowdy and Judge Jeanine Pirro and Robert and Alan Dershowitz to figure out what's what. So, around June 6th, we knew that a grand jury, a federal grand jury, was being convened around that time in Florida. Number one, why do we need to know this information? And why is it important for us not to know this information? Well, a few reasons. Because number one, people aren't supposed to know that information. That's number one. We're not supposed to know that a grand jury is being convened, federal or otherwise, to hear about any particular case. And yet we knew it was about the document case in Florida for Trump via CNBC. That's weird. Okay, on June 9th, that's when that happened. About when the indictment came out that he had been indicted by a grand jury. That was the CNBC. June 11th, we knew via the Washington Post where the documents were found. Basically, facts of the case. That's what I'm calling it, because they said, well, one was found in his bathroom, some light turd reading, and one was found in his bedroom, nighttime reading, and then one was found here and there and over here and this place and that place in his home. Okay, so it's not like the Biden case where non-grand jury people found out about the location of his documents, which was by his car in his garage, and there was no sign-in sheet where they could say, oh, this person was here, this person was there, this person was here, so we knew who had access to those particular documents. No, they were just sitting in the floor in his garage, open for anybody, even robbers who went in there and broke in and decided, hey, I want these documents. And plus, on top of that, that was from when he was a senator and a vice president, meaning he didn't have the authority to unclassify those particular documents. So we found out on June 11th via the Washington Post where these particular documents were found in Mar-a-Lago. So facts of the case that was put before the grand jury, we found out 2 days after we found out there was an indictment by the grand jury and what it was about. You see what I'm saying here? So now we know what the indictment was about already. Approximately when the grand jury convened in order to hear about this particular case. And now we know facts of the case, the location of the documents in his home. Now on June 12th, Fox News reported that Trump was showing up in Miami, Florida, from wherever he was on an airplane to answer to these charges, meaning to go to court for his first appearance, to go to his arraignment. So I did some digging, okay? I want to say a few things before I get to my point, so just bear with me. Now, this reminded me of the New York case versus Trump about the author broad who apparently didn't make enough money on her book because everybody's calling her nonsense. And so now she needs money, and so she's going to sue Trump civilly. Which is ridiculous because, as we found out, there was no facts in that case either, other than supposedly showing up at this one shop that they both shopped at and supposedly doing this, that, and the other. There was no video, no witnesses, no nothing, other than maybe a few people stating, okay, yeah, he was there, she was there, I was there, I was there.
She worked there, by the way.
Did she work there?
Yes.
Well, that then is 1,000% ridiculous. Because, like I said, that's not enough to try somebody for stealing bubble gum from a store. Okay, they have to have more than that for stealing a stick of bubble gum out of a bubble gum freaking packet at a store. But this was good enough for a assault case. Ridiculous. This also reminds me definitely about the New York case versus Trump about the payment of hush money. The 37 charges of hush money payments, when the document that basically states everything anybody needs to know is that the guy who paid the hush money got it out of his own account via his lawyer stating this. So maybe that's why we're not hearing about this case, is because of that and the fact that the grand jury indictment was leaked before the arraignment. And the charges leaked, and the nature of the charges leaked, and facts and evidence was leaked. But don't quote me on that, because again, I am not a lawyer. So all this is just me logically putting crap together from what I've saw, what I've heard, what I've Googled. I may be completely wrong on this. Okay? Now, this is the third one. Florida versus documents. And I just got a curiosity, maybe a lawyer could tell me. Is the prosecution supposed to prove his guilt? Like on espionage? And isn't that like a huge burden here? Because according to Cornell University, espionage is the crime of spying or secretly watching a person, company, government, etc., for the purpose of gathering information or detecting wrongdoing, and to transfer such information to another organization or state. So my question is, if I know the nature of the charges, and this is before he was arraigned, that one is going to, 31 charges is going to be according to the Espionage Act of, I believe it was 1814, 1817, somewhere around there. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer or a constitutional scholar. This is not my schwad. Okay. So that seems to me, logically, that is a lot to prove, because they have to prove that he had these documents in order to either A, show wrongdoing, or to gather information for another organization or state or country or whatever. And the simple fact of the matter is, I think it'd be an easier burden to prove that Joe Biden is guilty of espionage in the facts that we already have of what he's all about. You know what I'm saying? So by definition, it bears to believe our own government and all involved in this case are guilty of espionage via spying on a private citizen, spying on Trump. See, it shouldn't matter to anybody that listens to this video that it's Trump. It shouldn't matter. Okay, I would not care if the shoe was on the other foot and this was happening to someone on the left that I don't like or I particularly cannot stand, the fact of the matter is that if this goes through, all the crimes that they are committing thus far, the persecution alone is wrong. Period. There's no 15 different shades of law, okay? Sure, it has nuance, it has gray areas, but it is black and white. Literally. This law says this law says that. If you don't do this, if you don't do that, if you do this, if you do that, then it's either against or according to law. Period. It's like math. Period. One answer. I'm so sick and tired of this stupid triple, quadruple, quintuple answers. Now, we need to understand the 5 protected categories of persecution here. One is race, one is religion, one is nationality, one is membership of a particular group, or the last one is membership, belief in a particular political ideal or group. And that's from Article 1A, I imagine subsection 2, of the Geneva Refugee Convention and Protocol. This is how they figure if you're persecuted. It's got to fall under one of those categories. Trump falls under 2 of those categories. He's a member of an adversary political group. He is a member of MAGA, which is a particular group. And that is why he is being persecuted. So political persecution, cruel and unfair treatment of a person or a group, especially because of their religious or political beliefs or their race, or the other ones. Okay? Is he being treated fairly? No. Is he being treated lawfully? No. He is being treated cruelly and unfairly because of his political ties and because of his group ties. He is tied with we the people against the United States government of corruption. And so he is being legally persecuted. Now, grand jury indictment, again, we knew before the first appearance what charges Trump was indicted on. Whether federal or local, the grand jury indictment stays sealed until the first appearance or where he makes his plea. Okay, I call it the plea trial. Intelligent lawyers like Robert and Judge Jeanine Pirro and Alan Dershowitz and Trey Gowdy would call it the arraignment. Okay? Because again, we knew around June 6th that a federal grand jury was being convened to hear these charges. On June 9th, the indictment and what it was all about. On June 11th, the location of the alleged documents. And on June 12th, we found out via Fox News that Trump was just touching down in Miami, Florida, before his arraignment, his first appearance, before court began. So I'm not saying like 2 days before, 3 days before, 4 days before. I don't even know if he's had his first appearance yet, nor do I care. I know the fact that it was before his first appearance, okay? Because this is what the media told us. He was also in constant contact with NARA, the National Archives, and obeying the rules of secure storage. So basically, he was doing what they were telling him to do. Securing it behind a locked door. How do we know this? Because we know that during the Mar-a-Lago raid, they actually broke the lock of the door that it was sealed behind, like a skiff-like area. The question is the indictment and list of charges, explanation of charges, etc., etc., is supposed to be sealed up until the point where the arraignment unseals these documents and tells us about what he's being charged with and other stuff like that, minus the facts, like the location of these documents, I should say the alleged location of the alleged documents. Minus that, is supposed to be sealed until the arraignment. Where, like my husband said, then it's read into the record. Another thing I have a problem with is by all this news media coverage of the facts, the evidence or potential evidence, the charges, what they're all about before the arraignment, they're literally tainting all jury pools in America. Because, like, this is nationwide news. This is international news. So they have just literally tainted the jury pool. There can't be no relief by change of venue because everybody knows. Now, feds are over this case. This is what I honestly believe, that the feds are taking care of this case because they don't like live coverage. And at this point, with all this corruption, all this nonsense going on, we need to, as a public entity, as we the people, the most powerful entity, need to say, no, not these kind of cases. Political cases and stuff like that, they need to be televised. We know you don't like televising trials and issues like this, but yeah, no. In this case, you need to televise it. And we need to demand that, like we demand of Congress, that they televise their proceedings. Whether or not anybody wants to watch it or not is completely up to the people. But the people need to demand that in this case, in order to be fair, in order to have accountability, the feds need to go ahead and televise this. Because we see thus far from everything I've just mentioned that we cannot trust them to be just, unbiased, and fair. Like I said, he hasn't even went to his first appearance before everything was leaked out. Now, oh, I'm sorry, it was June 5th, not June 6th, that we heard about a grand jury was convening to hear about this particular case and the information in the case. My bad. According to www.justice.gov, these are the steps of criminal procedure. So these are the official languages of what it be. 1, you have an investigation. 2, you then have charges. 3, initial hearing arraignment. Okay, so in number 2, you're supposed to get the indictment. You know, that brings up the charges. That says, hey, this is what you're being charged with. This is the nature of the charges. Blah, 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 blah. The prosecutor turns in their paperwork saying this is what we want to charge him with, blah, blah. And a grand jury convenes and says, we see your point. This is what we're going to charge him with. This is what we're going to indict him on. At least that's how I understand it from what they said. Now, the initial hearing or arraignment is the actual professional wording for the first appearance, or what I call the plea hearing thingy, is when they can hear pleas. It's the very, very beginning of pretrial, basically. Number 4 is discovery, when they turn over all the materials, like, this is what we found, this is where we found it, this is this, that, and that. Then comes the plea bargaining, like, okay, you've got enough evidence against me, or you don't have enough evidence against me. I plead not guilty, I plead guilty, but I want special privileges, I want a deal. So that's the official plea bargaining. Six is the preliminary hearing. I imagine this is where, they get all their ducks in a row, stating this is how we're going to do our thing, this is our witness list, etc., etc., etc. And then the next one is pretrial motions, which means like jury instructions. We don't like that it says this, we don't like this, we like this, we want to add this, we want to take away this. Basically, housekeeping. And then 8 is the trial. So as we see, there is a definite lineage of what they're supposed to be doing. And the fact that we know before the trial, before the presentation of evidence even, what the evidence is, i.e. the location of the alleged location of the alleged documents, it's bull crap, okay? And like my husband told me, all grand jury indictments are sealed until the arraignment to the public, where the list of the charges, nature of the charges, etc., are unsealed and read into the record. Now, leaking grand jury indictments, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E prohibits most persons from disclosing what transpired. Meaning, when you walk into that room, you are made to give a unspoken vow of silence about what transpired. Who said what, where was what evidence was shown, this, that, and the other thing. Which it wasn't, because as we all know from, I want to say it was June 9th, but somewhere around June 9th, from the media, that one of the charges were conspiracy to hide information from the grand jury. And logically, when I think of it, only the grand jury would be given that charge. Giving that charge. Not like an officer would be like, jump on the thing. Oh, they're trying to hide things from the grand jury. It doesn't happen during investigation, in my mind, logically thinking. An investigator, a detective, isn't going to walk in and know you're trying to hide things from a grand jury. The fact, maybe hide things from the cops, hide things from the prosecution, hide things from wherever. I could see that. That would be logical. However, hide evidence from the grand jury? No. So, my question that I want to pose to everybody is, if this indictment, this grand jury indictment, is supposed to be sealed until the arraignment, How did we know before he even appeared in court the facts, i.e., the alleged locations of the alleged documents and charges and the nature of the charges before he was even arraigned his first day in court, before even that, if it was not the federal offense of grand jury leaking? This is all I want to know. Because that is what happened on the Bragg case, where they were trying to get him on the hush money. The simple fact is that we knew the charges and the nature of the charges before he even appeared in court. For the very, very first time. And this is that again. So it would be logical to assume if it was a federal offense, a federal crime, for us to know that then about not such a big deal, i.e. espionage. Why aren't we discussing that here? Why are we not discussing the fact that we know where the alleged locations of the alleged documents were before even the first court appearance? Why is that? And regardless, if that is even brought up in the trial, i.e., oh, well, this is allegedly where, the locations of the alleged documents were, we find out that that is just, who was it? The Washington Post, I believe? Yeah, Washington Post, just blowing smoke up our ass. You know what I mean? Like just coming up with, oh, this is where Even if it's like that, the simple fact that one of the charges has to do with not handling the documents right, espionage, and all that, it bears asking, even if it isn't part of the charges, evidence, whatever, why do we know this information? And I know everybody that loves legal trials, like myself, are all, yeah, buddy, you're just giving us more smoke for us to run around and discuss this amongst ourselves and to deal with this, ... And so then the prosecution can cry, oh, these legal crime folks, these true crime lovers, they're all messing up everything by telling folks this is what they think and speculation and all this and all that. Why the hell did you allow the leak of the grand jury indictment, the nature of the charges, and facts that may actually be in evidence and be used for the trial if you didn't want us to speculate? This trial needs to be viewed live. It needs to be live streamed. And the reason it needs to be live streamed is because this case, much like the Bragg case, is full of crap and already starting out on a federal offense of grand jury leaking. So no, it's not the true crime people that are doing wrong, Mr. Federal prosecutors, media, and the rest of you morons. It's the federal government, it's the grand jury, it's the media that is doing wrong. On top of that, right hand to God, if this could happen to Trump, imagine what could happen to one of us who doesn't have the money for awesome lawyers like Trump does, who doesn't have the platform like Trump does. Imagine what could happen to one of us. And at this point, I don't care if you're a left-wing person or a right-wing person or an independent, if you don't even care about politics. I don't care which stance you take, whether you're red, white, blue, green, purple, orange, black, yellow, in between colors, identify as a different color, or person, animal, penguin, pencil, item. The fact of the matter is, that is a lot.
Yes.
I wanted to make sure to be inclusive in my I don't care. The fact of the matter is, this is showing us right now that whenever the government wants to get a stick up its ass and do whatever it wants to do, there is literally nothing holding them back. And I know you're all excited because, oh, it's Trump. That's awesome. They'll finally get him. Imagine if that was your mother. And people said, oh, well, I didn't like her anyway. She woke up in the morning and banged pots and pans around, and I heard it in the next apartment. And so, I didn't like her anyway. So, she shouldn't get justice. No. We need to hold this accountable, and we need to demand that this federal trial is live streamed so that we could see everything that goes on in that court and judge for ourselves as the court of public opinion and as the 13th juror. Because all this information that we have right now, we shouldn't have. It shouldn't have been released. And the fact that it's released should make everything a damn moot point now. Because that's illegal, what they've been doing. And people don't care because it's Trump. But that is political persecution at its finest. And imagine what it's going to be like when you're on the wrong side of political persecution. This is literally how it starts. We need to stop it immediately, no matter who we are, what we believe in. We need to unite as we the people and hold the government and this nonsense to accountability, regardless of who it is. We need to take Lady Justice's blindfold and put it back on her fully. And we need to make sure that the swing of that sword of justice is even and tempered. Else when they don't like us, they'll do this to us too. And then it will be a problem, but then it will be too late. And that's real with Robo.